So that's a perfect segue for us to jump in and talk about the bantamweight rankings right now. So the big fight coming up in the horizon in October, we're gonna have the rematch between Aljo and Peter Yan. How do you see that one going?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty clear from the first fight that Jan is just overall and all around a better fighter. Unless Aljo can potentially pull off a quick back take or something crazy like he did against Sandhagen, I just see the fight going the same exact way. I think maybe if he can reserve his gas tank a little bit more and keep the pressure on, he could potentially steal a victory, like a split decision. But I don't see any world in which he finishes him. I don't see him winning by knockout. I think
Right.
Jan is just too technical, is too good at takedown defense. His wrestling, even like we saw his offensive wrestling with this like
The
foot
trips, they're
sweeps,
nasty.
it's
He
very
throws
like
people to
just.
the ground.
And if you listen to I know you rewatched the fight this past week. You can
Yep.
hear the commentators themselves just talking about how everything Jan did was just
It was on point. So
so
clean.
crisp. It was just sort of like a level above what Aljo was
Yep.
doing. Everything Aljo was doing seemed very belabored, and
He
um,
wore out very quickly. I think
yeah,
there was a lot of adrenaline, and they mentioned it a bunch of times how he looks like, that the moment's a little bit too big for him. Maybe Aljo next time is a little more kind of settled in and got that past him, or maybe he feels like he didn't deserve the belt, and even more pressure's on him now to try to hold on to it. We don't know.
yeah, yeah. All I know is Jan's a scary proposition for anyone.
Yeah.
Because he's almost like a slightly different version of Khabib, where it just seems like you watch his fights, the inevitable happens where you're going to get exhausted.
Yep.
Maybe not so much from like a mauling and like a wrestling, but just from like a striking perspective. He's going to block everything. He's going to come back with his own crisp shots. He's
Ton
gonna
of
wear you
power.
out. Very strong for the division. Yeah, he feels very much like a inevitable force in any fight that he's in. So I see him winning that. I see him winning that potentially easily. And then, yeah, I guess that leads us to who's in contention from there. I think we have Rob Font is like the other clear contender besides
Yep.
TJ at this point. So what do you do with Rob Font then? Do you give him Sandhagen? Do you let
I
them
think you
fight it
do,
out?
and seeing and us mentioning, Corey not losing much respect for that loss, and it's hard to say loss because it doesn't really feel like it with how well he did. Um, Rob seems to be another guy that's just running that side, that bubble of getting that close to the championship fight. And what do you do other than put those two guys head to head? I think it'll be almost a similar fight to what you'd expect from I don't know anyone standing on the feet. The two guys would be right in front of each other. They're long range, very long, and can make shots from anywhere. They're probably not going to be taken to the ground. They are going to keep fighting, and it would be a hell of a fight. It's strange because
Yeah,
135 with bantamweights like this, you'll get a lot of guys that are shorter, but they're both very tall, very long, and yeah, it's one I'd love to see.
yeah. I love Sandhagen. I think he's phenomenal and talented. That's a tough fight for
Yeah.
him. He's Font's going to go forward like TJ did. We saw he's able to wear him down and hold him against the fence. It's going to be tough, and he can match his range too. So he's aggressive. He's going to stay behind his jab, his 1-2, and I'm curious to see how Sandhagen handles that problem that is Rob Font, because he's a fight I feel like a lot of people don't want right now.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing with the UFC right now is how quickly a division starts getting talked about. And I think within 6 months, probably shorter, this division has taken off. Where Rob Font had one great performance against Cody, totally dominated him. Cody looked like the lesser fighter that night, and Rob gets all the headlines after, and then TJ comes back, and all of a sudden he's back in the mix, and you have let's say five guys who feel like they're one fight away from a title shot, and the fans benefit. I mean, there's so many fights to make, and it's just so great to talk about.
Yeah. There's a lot, and even guys who aren't necessarily like I think it's interesting because a guy like Marlon Moraes, for example, too, he's probably not in title contention,
Yep.
like from his record and his recent losses, but that guy is as scary as anyone in the division. He's got as much firepower as anyone. He could give even Peter Yan some problems.
Yep.
He's got the firepower for that, and yeah, just 1 through 10 in that division is just murderer's row. And then I think there's the outlier Sean O'Malley as well, who's the fan favorite, who's it looks like he has all the skills to make a run. I think he's probably ready for a top 10 type guy as
Yep.
well. What do you do with him if you're the UFC?
That is the good question. I mean, he fought. I think the joke was the week of the Moutinho fight, he was fighting a nobody. Like, no one had heard of Moutinho at all. And as much as that fight is probably about as good as it could have turned out to be for all the strangest reasons, O'Malley, in hindsight, absolutely dominated, but I found myself still holding my breath because when Moutinho is not getting knocked out and Sean's moving backwards, and you can tell he's getting a little bit tired because just having to throw that many punches, you're still holding your breath. So anyway, that fight is as good as we could have wanted it to be for what it was, but Sean is ready to take that step. He's calling out everybody at the top of the division, and he's not getting them, but UFC has a history of moving these type of stars along at different paces, some too fast, some too slow, and you're never really sure what the right mix is. But I mean, I love him getting matched up with a guy between 10 and 15 right now. If he puts on a similar performance and really shows out like he has been, you can move him up, between 5 and 10, and give him that opportunity he's really begging for. But I don't think he's going to continue to gain that much as far as his career by fighting unranked guys, especially being a budding star. But one name that I think is worth mentioning here, Dominic Cruz. One of the guys he called out, I think Cruz turned it down, but I would love to see that fight. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the other top guys, Aldo's tied up. I think Marlon Moraes is tied up. I don't know if you give him someone who's like 6 or higher, but like a Dominic Cruz fight for him, I think is a very winnable fight for him in a lot of ways. Dom's he's
I think
injured.
it's a pick 'em. I mean, who do you strongly favor either of those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine from a Vegas betting perspective, O'Malley would be the favorite.
I don't think it would be by much.
Yeah,
Cruz is coming off a win against Casey Kenny. I don't think Kenny was ranked, but I don't think he's too far out of rankings either. And he's got a history.
O'Malley, I think he's won so decisive. I know he's been fighting guys who aren't exactly
Tomato cans. I think you can say
tomato cans, for lack of better terminology. But I think you can tell at a certain point that he has the ability to hang with someone probably in the top 10.
If he doesn't get injured, which has happened a few times, but yes.
I think he would probably do much better against a guy like Cruz versus someone who can just eat shots and continue to go forward and land
that's a
his
scary
own
night
play.
for anyone. The Nate Diaz of 135.
Like a Jose Aldo who can kick your leg. You saw that giving him problems in the Vera fight. I think the Dom fight's a very winnable fight, but I think Dominic Cruz could also win that fight as well.
Totally.
Haven't seen anyone really test O'Malley's wrestling. I think Dom has amazing timing, amazing footwork, and I think he could really potentially give him some problems if he's able to get inside and work his wrestling, work his like unorthodox striking. I think that would be, if I'm putting my UFC business cap on, I think that's a fight that you could make a main event out of.
Yep.
Without having to worry, without having to have your top contenders cancel each other out, and no one wants to see Fawn or Sanhagen like take another loss probably, but it kind of like gives you a chance to propel O'Malley into the top 10 to get him in the title talks, and then it also gives a huge feather in the cap to Dom Cruz if he's able to stop the rising star. So I think that's the fight I would make from the UFC. Will that happen? Probably not.
To your point, we'd be remiss not to look at the business side of it, because obviously that always comes into play, because I mean, O'Malley right now is fighting on the main card of pay-per-views without a ranking. I mean, that's pretty incredible. But
Yeah,
you look at Cruz, former champ. I mean, he has a following, and even if he isn't who he used to be, there's still people that know his name. Compared to when we talk about the last five O'Malley fights, it's been O'Malley versus someone, some guy, and for the most part, other than maybe Cheeto Vera, is someone that, unless you're a hardcore follower of the sport, if you're a cage side casual, you may not even heard of all these guys.
right.
So putting basically two guys that the fans know together, one of them being O'Malley, anyone else on that other side that is known, I think makes for a good fight and a fight that draws a lot of eyes, brings in money, and is exactly what they need for him.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think also he's had a lot of fights in the UFC, and so I think
Yeah,
if it's not Dominic Cruz, I do want to see O'Malley fight someone tough. I want to see him take a big jump up because he's had like 5 fights in the UFC at this point. He's had
O'Malley, I think he's had closer to 10, maybe 7 or 8. The only other thing that I'll pitch to you right now: do you care about a rematch with Cheeto Vera?
I, yeah, I mean, if I'm the UFC, maybe I'm cautious about that. Like Cheeto Vera is not exactly like a household name. I don't know how well
Yeah,
that would do. Maybe they could sell that as like because O'Malley definitely talks a lot of crap
right in the
saying
wrong, possibly.
saying he's undefeated. I think he has that in all his like social media
Yep,
bios.
and it's partially genius because I think the way that played out, you watch it and it seems fluky, and then you look at kind of the science after and hitting, that part of the leg where he got hit can lead to that injury, and we'd seen it before. It stings when you can never do, the medical analysis live to really see what happened, but we know what the result was, and yeah, Sean played it from a marketing perspective perfectly, undefeated, and it doesn't felt like he lost. Whatever you want to say, but I've never gotten the vibe that he really cares about getting that one back. He's moved forward and he's doing his thing, whether it be in Hollywood or in the cage. But it is
Yeah,
one thing it's funny when those things happen because then in the back of viewers' minds, it's that fight can always be made, just for the sake of the story it already has behind it.
yeah. But to answer your question, yes, I am. I am interested in seeing.
You just want to see him fight, just like the rest of us. So.
Yeah, absolutely.